The kitchen smelled like burnt coffee. And unspoken words, I stood frozen in the doorway watching my father stare at his phone. His face had gone pale, his jaw tight. The screen glowed between us. Like a confession I hadn't meant to make. My heart slammed against my ribs. He'd found my texts, the ones to George. The ones that said everything I'd been hiding for 23 years. Mike, his voice was flat empty. We need to talk. This was it, the moment I'd rehearsed a thousand times in my head, the moment that always ended with slammed doors and broken ties. I was about to lose my father, or so I thought. 2 weeks earlier, my life had been perfectly compartmentalized. I worked at my father's auto repair shop in Pine Ridge, a small town where everyone knew everyone's business, where being different meant being discussed at Sunday dinners in church, PTLUCKs. My father, Alexander Chen, had built Chen's auto from nothing. 30 years of grease stained hands and 16-hour days. He'd raised me alone after mom died when I was 8, never remarrying, never complaining. He taught me everything: how to rebuild an engine, how to shake hands firmly, how to be a man, just not how to be this kind of man. I'd gotten good at hiding, at dating girls I didn't really want, and laughing at jokes that made my stomach turn, at being the son he expected. Then George walked into the shop on a Tuesday afternoon, and my carefully constructed walls started crumbling. He drove a vintage Mustang with a cracked radiator, all confidence and easy smiles. "Heard you're the best in town," he said, leaning against the counter. His eyes were green, startling against his tan skin. He wore paint stained jeans and a faded band t-shirt. "Depends on who you ask," I replied, trying to focus on the work order. "I'm asking you." Something in his tone made me look up. He was watching me with an intensity that made my pulse quicken, like he could see through every lie I'd ever told. "We'll take good care of it," I managed. His smile widened. "I'm counting on it." George came back 3 days later to pick up the Mustang. Then he came back the next week for an oil change, then the week after that for a tire rotation. My father noticed that young man sure does need a lot of car work. I kept my eyes on the invoice. "He drives a lot, Ham." Dad's tone was knowing, but I couldn't tell what he knew. The fourth time George came in, he waited until my father went to lunch. "Are you always this hard to talk to?" George asked, watching me wipe down my tools. "I'm working on Saturday." "You work 7 days a week. The shop doesn't run itself. When do you run?" He stepped closer. "When do you do what makes you happy?" The question hit like a wrench to the chest. I couldn't remember the last time someone had asked what made me happy. In Pineridge, you did what you were supposed to do, what your family needed, what the town expected I should get. "Back to work," I said quietly. George studied me for a long moment, then he pulled out his phone. "Put your number in, just in case my car breaks down again." "Your car is fine, humor me." I took the phone. My hands were shaking as I typed. The first text came that night. "George, your hands were shaking today." My breath caught. I stared at the screen for 5 minutes before responding. "Me fixing a complicated engine, George, we both know that's not why." I set the phone down, picked it up, set it down again. "George, it's okay to be scared. I was too once." "Me scared of what, George?" "Of wanting something you're not supposed to want." I closed my eyes. The words hung in the air like smoke, like truth, like everything I'd been running from. "Me, I can't." "George can't or won't." "Me both." "George, fair enough, but I'm here if that changes." I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake thinking about green eyes and easy smiles, and the way George had looked at me like I was something worth knowing, like I was allowed to be myself. We started texting every day. Small things at first. George told me about his art. He painted murals around the state, traveling from town to town, never staying anywhere too long. "Sounds lonely." I texted one night. "George, it is, but it's safer than staying." "Me safer how, George?" "Small towns, remember, they don't always forgive." I understood that in my bones. Pineridge had been home for 23 years, but it was also a cage. Everyone knew my father. Everyone expected me to be exactly like him: strong, stoic, straight. Me Your family accept you, George. Eventually took time, took distance. Took me finally accepting myself first. Me, how did you do that? George stopped. Living for other people's comfort. Words settled into my chest like seeds. Uncomfortable, impossible to ignore. 3 weeks after we met, George asked me to coffee, just coffee, he said when. I hesitated, no pressure, no expectations. We met at the diner on the edge of town. Far enough from the shop that no one would see. I felt ridiculous, like a teenager sneaking around. George was already there, sketching in a worn notebook. He looked up when I slid into the booth and his whole face brightened. You came, I'm here for coffee, I saw. Too defensive, of course. His eyes sparkled with amusement. Just coffee. But it wasn't just coffee, it was 2 hours of talking about everything in his childhood in Portland, my memories of my mother, his dreams of opening a gallery someday, my fear of disappointing my father. What do you think would disappoint him? George asked softly. This is me being gay. The word hung between us. I'd never said it out loud, never. Let it take shape in the real world. He's traditional, I whispered. He came from Taiwan with nothing, built everything on his own terms. He has certain expectations of you or of himself. The question startled me. What? Sometimes parents put their own fears on their kids, their own unfulfilled dreams, their own rules about how the world should work. George leaned forward. But you're not responsible for living his life, you're only responsible for living yours. My eyes burned. You make it sound simple, it's not simple. It's terrifying. He reached across the table, stopped just short of touching my hand. But it's worth it. Being yourself is always worth it. We started meeting regularly, always careful, always discreet. Coffee became walks in the woods outside. Walks became long drives to the lake where we could sit on the hood of his Mustang and watch the sunset without worrying who might see. George told me about his first relationship, how it had ended badly when his boyfriend couldn't handle the pressure of coming out, how he'd learned that hiding love only made it hurt more. I told him about the girls I dated, how I'd tried so hard to feel something real, how the failure had made me feel broken. You're not broken, George said firmly, you're just finally becoming whole. One evening, sitting by the water, he turned to me. Can I kiss you? Everything in my body screamed yes, but the fear was louder. I'm not ready. That's okay. He smiled, gentle and understanding. I'll be here when you are. My father noticed the change in me, how I smiled more, how I hummed while working, how I checked my phone between oil changes. Are you seeing someone? He asked one afternoon, casual but curious. My stomach dropped. What makes you say that? You're happy. Haven't seen you this happy since before your mother passed. The comparison hit hard. Mom had been the warm one, the one who made everything feel safe. After she died, Dad and I had become islands, close but separate, connected but never quite touching. It's just making a new friend, I said carefully. Dad nodded, returning to the engine he was working on. Good, you spend too much time alone, need people your own age. If only he knew. George stayed in Pine Ridge longer than he'd planned. He took a mural commission for the library, bought a 2-month lease at the motel, and integrated himself into the edges of my life. I should move on, he said one night, but I can't seem to leave. We're in his motel room, a risk I'd finally worked up the courage to take. The space smelled like paint and coffee. His sketches covered every surface. Why not? I asked, though I knew the answer. Hoped I knew you, he asked it simply. I keep hopping, you'll let yourself want this, want me, I do want you. The confession burst out of me. God, George, I want you so much it scares me. Then what's stopping you? Everything. My father, this town, the shop, the life I've built, or the life you've been assigned. George moved closer. Mike, I can't promise you it'll be easy. Coming out never is, especially in places like this, but I can promise you won't be alone. His hand found mine. The touch sent electricity through my entire body. The first time I'd let myself be touched with intention, desire, with truth. I'm falling for you, he whispered. I tried not to keep my distance, but you make it impossible. George, you Don't have to say anything, I just needed you to know, but I wanted to say something, wanted to tell him that I dreamed about him, thought about him constantly, that he'd cracked something open inside me. I didn't know how to close. Instead, I leaned forward and pressed my lips to his. The kiss was soft, attentive, everything I'd never let myself imagine, and absolutely everything he had been missing. We started seeing each other. Secret, stolen moments at the moat, late night drives, eerily morninging texts. It was thrilling and agonizing and perfect and terrifying all at once. This was my first real relationship, the first time I'd let myself feel this vulnerable, this seen, this right. George was patient with my fear, with my need to keep things hidden, with the way I panicked every time we got too close to town together. I'm not going to push you, he said, but eventually you'll have to decide who you want to be and who you want to be with. I know. Does your father really not suspect anything? I thought about Dad's questions, his careful observations, the way he watched me lately, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. I don't know. He's hard to read. Would it be so terrible if he knew? Yes, the answer was automatic. He'd never understand. He'd see it as a failure, his feludo raising correctly on somehow. That's a lot of weight to carry, George said softly. His expectations, his potential disappointment, his imagined reaction to something you haven't even told him yet. You don't know him, you're right, but I know why. Oh. And I know you're stronger than you think. Everything changed on a Wednesday. I've been texting George during lunch, sitting in the shop's back office, telling him how I wished we could go to dinner like a normal couple. How I wanted to hold his hand in public. How I was tired of hiding. George then stop, hidden, leap me. I'm scared, George. I know, but I'm worth being scared for, and so are you, me. I love you. I'd send it without thinking. 3 words I'd never said to anyone romantically, 3 words that changed everything. George, say that to my face tonight. Me, your place. George, I'll be waiting. I was smiling at my phone when my father walked into the office. I didn't notice him at first, didn't realize he could see the screen over my shoulder. Mike jumped, nearly dropping the phone. Dad, hey. I was just, his face had gone strange, closed off. Who's George? My blood turned to ice. Friend, just a friend. Friends don't say I love you like that. The world tilted, narrowed down to this moment, this office, this man who'd raised me and might now reject me. Dad, how long? What, how long have you been? He struggled with the word. Seeing him, I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The walls were closing in. A few weeks, and you didn't tell me. It wasn't a question, it was an accusation wrapped in hurt. I couldn't, you wouldn't understand. Try me. His voice was hard, flat, everything I'd feared. Dad, please, are you gay? Mike, the question hung in the AI, final, unavoidable, the moment I'd been running for my entire life. Yes, my voice broke. Yes, I'm gay. Silence, heavy and suffocating. My father stared at me like I was a stranger, like 23 years of love and sacrifice had just evaporated into confusion. I need some air, he said. Finally, he walked out of the office, out of the shop, got in his truck and drove away. I stood alone in the silence, my phone buzzing with texts from George's. I couldn't bring myself to read. I just lost my father. He didn't come home that night. Sat in our house, the one we'd shared since Mom died. Texted him, called, got nothing back. George called me instead. Mike, what's wrong? He knows I was crying. I hadn't realized it until I heard my own voice. He knows. And he left, and I don't know where he is. I'm coming over. No, someone might see. I don't care. George's voice was fierce. You don't get to go through this alone. He showed up 20 minutes later, held me while I fell apart, let me soak his shirt with tears and panic and grief. He's never coming back, I whispered. I've lost him. You don't know that. You didn't see his face. We'll need time to process. It doesn't mean this is Pine Ridge. This is my father. It's traditional, conservative. This is exactly what I knew would happen. George pulled back to look at me. Then why did you tell him? I didn't mean to. He saw the text. I was careless and stupid, and you were honest, finally, accidentally honest. He cupped my face. That's not a Bad thing, it feels bad, I know. He kissed my forehead, but whatever happens, you're not alone anymore. You have me was both comforting and terrifying. Having George meant having something real to lose, having something that made hiding even harder. My father came home 2 days later. I was in the kitchen when I heard his truck. My heart started racing. I didn't know what to expect. Anger, rejection, demands that I leave. He walked in looking exhausted. Older somehow. Dad, let me talk. 8. His voice was rough. I've been driving, thinking, trying to understand. I nodded, not trusting my voice. When your mother died, I promised her I'd take care of you, raise you right, give you a good life. I sat down heavily. I thought I knew what that meant. Teach you the business, teach you to be strong, teach you to be a man. Each word was a knife. But I realize now. He stopped, started again. I realized I never asked what you wanted, what would make you happy. My eyes burned. I'm from a different generation, a different culture. Where I come from, he struggled with the word being gay. It's not talked about, not accepted. I brought those beliefs with me when I came to America. I know. Dad, I understand. You don't have to let me finish. He looked at me finally, his eyes red-rimmed. I drove to Portland to see your uncle. We remember him. I nodded. Uncle, we had been at our house a few times when I was young, then stopped visiting. I'd never known why. He's gay too, Dad said quietly. Came out 30 years ago. I cut him off, told him he was wrong, shameful that he'd embarrassed the family. My breath caught. I went to see him because I needed to understand, needed to hear from someone who'd lived through it. Dad's voice cracked. He told me about the years we didn't speak, how much it hurt him, how he built a life anyway. Good life with a partner he loves, how he wished I'd been there to see it. Tears were streaming down my father's face now. I'd never seen him cry, not even at Mom's funeral. Said the biggest regret of his life was that he couldn't share his happiness with his family, that we made him choose between being himself and being loved. Dad, I won't do that to you. He stood up, walked over to me. I won't make you choose. I won't lose you the way I lost Way. He pulled me into tight and desperate and full of everything we'd never been able to say to each other. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm sorry I made you scared to tell me. Sorry why I didn't create a home where you felt safe. I was sobbing now, all the fear and grief and relief pouring out of me. I don't understand everything, Dad continued, but I want to know this George person who makes you smile. I want to be part of your life, your real life, not the one you've been pretending to live for me. You mean it? He pulled back, looking at me with fierce determination. You're my son. Nothing changes that, not this, not anything. The next few weeks were strange and tender and healing. Dad asked awkward questions, sometimes insensitive questions, but genuine ones. How long had I known? Why hadn't I said something? What did being gay mean exactly? I answered as best I could, introduced him to George properly, watching nervously as they shook hands in our living room. You're the one who keeps needing car repairs, Dad said with a slight smile. George laughed, guilty though in my defense. They were worth it. My son does good work, does excellent work at everything. Dad studied George carefully. I could see him trying to understand, trying to reconcile his expectations with this reality. You make him happy. I try to, George said softly. He makes me happy too. Dad nodded slowly. That's what matters then. It wasn't perfect. Dad still struggled with public displays of affection, still concede when George touched my hand at the dinner table, still worried about what people in town would say. But he was trying, genuinely, actively trying. Coming out in Pine Ridge was harder than I'd imagined. Some people were supportive, others stopped coming to the shop. Mrs. Henderson from church pulled me aside to tell me she was praying for my soul. Tom from the hardware store wouldn't meet my eyes anymore, but there were surprises too. The librarian told me her nephew was gay, and she was glad I'd be visible in town. The high school teacher said representation mattered. Even old Mr. Patterson, who'd always seemed gruff and traditional, nodded at me in the grocery store and said, heard about you and that artist. Good for you, son, my father watched it. All carefully, I could see him. Processing, learning, adjusting his worldview one interaction at a time. One evening, a customer commented something cruel about the gay mechanic. Dad's response was immediate and fierce. That's my son you're talking about. You've got a problem with him, you've got a problem with me, and you can take your business elsewhere. The customer left. Dad turned to me, breathing hard. No one talks about you like that, not in my shop. Felt something crack open in my chest. Pride, gratitude, love so overwhelming I couldn't speak. Thanks, Dad, I'm learning, he said gruffly. Might take me a while, but I'm learning. George's month-to-month lease turned into 3 months, then 6. He got more mural commissions in the area, started talking about putting down roots. I've never stayed anywhere this long, he said one night, wrapped in my arms on his motel room bed. Is that good or bad? Terrifying, he smiled against my shoulder, but good. Really good. We started talking about the future, about George maybe moving in with me, about what a life together in Pine Ridge might look like. Are you sure you want to stay here? I asked, in a small town that's not always accepting. I want to stay with you, George corrected, wherever that is, but I also think this town needs people like us. Visible, happy, living our truth. That's a lot of pressure, or it's just us being ourselves. He kissed me softly. Either way, I'm in. 6 months after my father found out we had dinner together, all 3 of us. Dad had insisted on cooking, attempting to make his mother's traditional recipes. The kitchen smelled like ginger and soy sauce. George helped chop vegetables while I set the table. Dad watched us move around each other with the easy intimacy of people in love. Your mother would have liked him, Dad said suddenly. I stopped mid-motion. Really, she always wanted you to find someone kind. Looked at George. I think she would have approved. Oh. George's eyes glistened. That means more than you know, Mr. Chin. Call me Alexander. Or Dad if you want. He said it awkwardly, but he meant it. Over dinner, Dad told stories about my mother I'd never heard, how they'd fallen in love despite language barriers and cultural differences, how her parents hadn't approved at first, how they'd built life anyway on their own terms. Love doesn't always look like we expect it to, Dad said. Took me too long to learn that, but I'm learning. After dinner, George helped with the dishes while Dad and I sat on the porch. I'm proud of you, Dad said quietly. For what? For being brave enough to be yourself. Even when it was hard, even when you thought I'd reject you. That takes more strength than anything I ever taught you. You taught me everything, Dad. No, you taught yourself the most important thing, how to be true to who you are. I just finally learned to support it. The town slowly adjusted. Our relationship became normal, unremarkable. The mechanic and the artist, Mike and George, are just another couple in Pine Ridge. George painted a mural on the side of the shop, abstract and colorful, bringing life to the gray exterior. Dad stood back and watched it come together, arms crossed but smiling. Your boyfriend has talent, he said. He does. You have good taste. I laughed. Thanks, Dad. Put his arm around my shoulder, something he'd started doing more often. Little gestures of acceptance and love. I wasted years with we, he said. Years I can't get back, but I won't waste any with you. Whatever time we have, I want to spend it knowing my real son, all of you. I love you, Dad. I love you too. Both of you. I think. George's family. Now, a year after that terrible Wednesday when my father found my text, George and I moved into a small house on the edge of town. Dad helped us move, joking about my collection of car parts and George's endless art supplies. We had a housewarming party, invited everyone who mattered, friends from town, Art colleagues, Dad's poker buddies who'd learned to accept us. Uncle Wee came too, traveling from Portland. I watched him on Dad hug for the first time in 30 years. Both of them are crying. Thank you, Wee said to me later, for giving my brother a second chance to get it right. He gave me a second chance too, I replied, to be myself. That night after everyone left, George and I stood in our new living room surrounded by boxes. Can you believe we're here? He asked. Sometimes It still feels like a dream, a good dream, the best dream. I pulled him close. You changed my life, George. You changed mine too. You made me want to stay, made me believe in home again. We kissed, surrounded by our future boxers, full of possibilities, walls waiting for art, a life we were building together. Openly, honestly, joyfully, my phone buzzed. A text from Dad. Dad, proud of you, son. Your mother would be too. Sleep well in your new home. That I showed George, who smiled. He's really come around. He has, and I think it's changed him too, made him softer, more open. Love does that, George said, breaks us open in all the best ways. What happened when my father found out I was gay shocked me, not because he rejected me, though that was my deepest fear, but because he chose love over fear, chose growth over tradition, chose his son over his expectations. He learned to see me, really see me. Not the version he'd imagined, but the real Miguel, in love, happy, finally whole. It wasn't perfect, there were still difficult moments, awkward conversations, and times when his traditional beliefs clashed with my reality, but he kept showing up, kept trying, kept choosing me every single day, and in doing so taught me the most important lesson of all, that real love isn't about conditions or expectations, it's about acceptance, about seeing someone fully and loving them anyway, or rather, because of who they truly are. My coming out journey wasn't just about me finding myself, it was about my father finding a new version of himself too, one that was more compassionate, more understanding, was more capable of love than he'd ever imagined. George permitted me to be myself, but Dad gave me something just as precious, proof that people can change, that hearts can soften, that it's never too late to choose love. We rebuilt our relationship from the ground up, this time on a foundation of truth. No more hiding, no more pretending, just two men learning to understand each other, to honor each other's journeys, to celebrate the love that binds families together, even when that love gets tested. Pine Ridge became home in a way it never had been before, not despite being myself, but because of it. The shop thrived. George's art filled galleries. Dad joined PFLAAG and started speaking at town meetings about acceptance. Uncle we visited regularly, bringing his partner of 25 years, showing us what decades of love look like. We built a life, a real, true, visible life, and every day I'm grateful for that terrifying Wednesday when everything changed, when my secret became truth, when my father had to choose between his expectations and his son. He chose me, and that made all the difference. This is my gay love story, not just of falling for George, but of watching my father fall in love with the real me, of a family reconstructing itself around truth instead of fear, of a small town slowly and perfectly learning that love is love regardless of who's doing the loving. The journey continues. Some days are harder than others, but we face them together. George's dad and me, three men who learned that being vulnerable, being honest, being yourself is the bravest something you can do, and is absolutely worth it every single time. Should their story continue, comment part 2 if you want more. Like if this made your heart race. Subscribe for weekly gay romance stories.